friends from Ukraine. Leaders also came from the Middle East, the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Jordanian King, King Abdullah, and his wife, Queen Rania. Turkish Prime Minister is here as well today. Some 50 leaders in all, gathering here today in solidarity with France, but also out of concern for the security threats they also face in their own lives, among their own people. And of course, when they come from the Middle East, they're coming from societies which are engulfed from the kind of violence that France saw for 3 days, but they see that on a daily basis. Too many lives lost, too many families destroyed, so many towns and cities that lie in ruin in Syria, in Iraq, and too many countries which are engulfed by the constant resurgence of a resort to violence and resolve their problems. This is a scene right from the very heart of the crowds in La Place de la République. My colleague Michal Hussein is at the entrance point to the square, where people are proceeding now to make their way along the two routes toward the Place de la Nation. At the front, sadly, the families of those who lost lives, 17 people killed in the 3 days of attacks here. You can join now, Michal Hussein.
Lisa, those families, the families of those 17 people, there is the pain of the nation, but there is the acute pain of those who have suffered so much personal loss and anguish over the last few days. And in tribute to that, they will be at the forefront of this march. They will be leading it. They will be joined along the way by those VIPs, the leaders from around the world who have come here and been welcomed by President Hollande. But really, this is going to be a march that is for the people of France, by the people of France and for the people of France. Looking down at this immense crowd, the numbers have swelled over the last few hours. Many people have been here since early in the day. They have brought their children with them. So as I look down on the gathering here, this remarkable gathering, it is truly one that appears to be representative of France. And that is so fitting, of course, for a moment and for a march that has been called as a symbol of French unity after such an anguished few days. So those at the front of the crowd at the start of Boulevard Voltaire just waiting now for the signal from the police that they can start walking down towards Place de la Nation on a route that will again fittingly take them not far from the offices of Charlie Hebdo and the moment on Wednesday where this attack and these 3 days of terror began for France. So it is a patient crowd, it is a somber crowd, carrying the French flag, some people, many Je suis Charlie slogans, occasional bursts of applause, but really people gathered from all walks of life with their own compulsions, with their own reflections, but in a common cause here in Paris today.
Saying the area where people are now pushing against the police lines and trying to start the march. Some security officials here have told us that there is a line of people, a huge crowd, some 3 kilometers long, of people just trying to get in to the Place de la République in order to join the march. And at the other end of the city, at the Élysée Palace, leaders are now making their way along the route of the march. President Hollande joined, as you can see in the picture, David Cameron, the British Prime Minister. Angela Merkel of Germany is there as well, part of a huge group of leaders who are in Paris today to be part of the Day of Solidarity. They are now proceeding about... They're now at the Boulevard Voltaire, which is the area, one of the main 2 routes that people will be taking to make their way through Paris, 2 main routes to send a very strong message that this is a country, a people, in fact, many parts of the world united in this threat against terrorism. Well, with us here watching these extraordinary events alone, is the French journalist Nicolas Henin. And Nicolas, you've been getting updates about what's happening. This should have started some time ago. It's a huge lot of people.
Exactly. I just received some phone calls. I mean, it's difficult to receive them because the networks are obviously very busy. But I just received some phone calls telling me from people who are living some kilometers away from here that the streets are packed already there. So basically, well, it's obviously too early to give any figure at the moment. You said earlier that 1 million people are expected at this demonstration. Well, it's likely that we will reach such a figure because, I mean, I've seen, I mean, Paris is used to very large demonstrations. You know well that we have unions, we have a culture of going down to the streets. But I have to say that I've never seen the streets of Paris so packed like this. And I have to say that I feel some pride, definitely, to see my people able to come down, not for any kind of selfish reason, because we have nothing to win going down to the streets. I mean, there is no immediate gain. It's not about a raise of wages or anything, or well, to get better working conditions, or the normal reasons for which people go down to the streets. This is something that goes beyond, the normal demonstrations that you would see in the streets of Paris, and it's well, I have to say that I'm quite impressed and quite happy. Even though, as I said earlier, I do not agree with everybody here. I do not agree with all the voters, and well, I mean, there are still some controversies that we'll have to settle later.
There are big questions that have to be raised here in France, and very difficult and some dangerous questions as well. But today is a day for solidarity. It is a day for the people to show their support, but it's also a day for officialdom as well. We can show you the pictures where the leaders, President Hollande, joined by some 50 world leaders, presidents, kings, queens, prime ministers, senior ministers from nearly 50 countries from around the world, joining me here in Paris today. They were at the Élysée Palace, where they were received by François Hollande, and now they are taking on Voltaire, which is one of the main routes toward Place de la Nation, which is where the two-mile march, 2 kilometers long, procession today will make its way through the French capital. It's hard for people to move out to the square. There are so many people who are trying to make their way. Some of these people have not moved at all. The crowd here is so tightly packed, and they are in the streets. I can look out into the streets that are moving into this, lead into the square from all of these directions. This is where the people are trying to join the march, and from the other side of the city, these are the leaders who are trying to join the march, as well. Leaders from around the world who are here, as David Cameron, the British Prime Minister, said, a day of solidarity, because all leaders attending this march know that what was seen in France this week is a problem faced not just by France itself, but a problem faced in many European capitals, many Western capitals, and a problem that governments, officials, people, particularly in the Middle East, grapple with on a daily basis, and have done so for many years. We're bringing you live coverage from all points of the march. I'm joined here by my colleagues at various points in the French capital, and Michel Hussein is at the very starting point on the other side of Place de la République.
At least that cheer, that huge cheer that is coming up from the crowd now marks the fact that the march has begun. The police have allowed those at the head of the march to start streaming down Boulevard Voltaire, so Place de la République will slowly, very slowly, given the numbers of people gathered here, it will slowly empty and move along the route of the march. And there are chants, there is cheering, there is clapping, there is movement finally. All of these people who have waited so patiently and who are filling the side streets of this square for as far as I can see around it. They are now able to move with all of their fellow Parisians, their fellow Frenchmen and women who have gathered here to join this moment of solidarity, this moment of unity called by the government, but those participating come from all walks of life. And it is a very powerful moment to see them all start to move along the route of this march, to be here as part of an expression of so many different emotions that have gripped this country in the last few days, but are really coming together in this moment of unity. For most of those who are gathered, I can't estimate the numbers, but there are many, many thousands in the square that I'm looking down on. It is going to be a long time before some of them even begin to move, because the marchers are going to make slow progress. But fittingly, at the front of this march are the families of the 17 victims, those who paid the ultimate price in what France saw over the last few days. This is their moment. They will be joined along the route by the VIPs, François Hollande, Nicolas Sarkozy, the former president of France, and all of those leaders who have come from different parts of the world to show their support to France. Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor, there alongside François Hollande today. But these events in France have touched a chord with many millions of people around the world, and the leaders are here as a symbol of that. So the first march is setting off down Boulevard Voltaire. The march is underway. We will know eventually just how many people have joined this, but as it begins, there is no doubt that this is a remarkable moment in France's recent history, something that no one who has taken part in it, who has seen it with their own eyes today, will ever forget.
Michelle, thank you. So the march is beginning, and you can see the crowds moving here much more quickly, moving toward the other entrance. So let's just try to get a sense. These people are moving in the wrong direction.
We have to. I'm afraid we have to.
Let's just get a sense of why people are here. Someone with a Je suis Charlie. Are you French?
Yeah, I'm French.
And why did you come out today?
To stand for the French rights.
And what for you is the French rights?
The freedom, la liberté d'expression.
Freedom of expression?
Yes.
But what other ones?
I don't know.
Yes, and for you?
I don't know.
The same.
The same, yes.
Do you feel threatened by what's happened this week in France?
Yeah, of course.
You think it could happen again?
Maybe. It's why we have to fight today to not that happen again.
We'll let you make your way along here. You see people to Charlie. We are all Charlie. Here's the one from the British Magnus Shaw cartoon. Je suis Charlie. Let us just show these. This cartoon went around the world. British cartoonist. A lot of people don't know that Charlie is named after Charlie Brown, the cartoon, Charlie Brown with his head in his hands. And here are the pencils. Je suis Charlie. Everywhere you look, you see the pencils. Do you speak English? No? Pourquoi vous êtes ici? Why did you come today? Pourquoi vous êtes?
Par solidarité avec les dessinateurs de Charlie.
Yes. Est-ce que vous, oui?
Petit, ouais.
So you've known the cartoonist since you were very small. So many people say this to us, that beaucoup de monde disent qu'ils sont parmi leur famille, les gens de...
Alors, on a l'impression d'avoir perdu des amis, des copains. Ouais.
A lot of people say this, they have the feeling that in losing these four such well-known cartoonists, they've lost like a member of their family. Do you have vous avez des craintes pour le futur? You have some problems, fears for the future?
J'espère que ça va s'arrêter là. Ouais. Voilà.
He hopes, this is what many people hope. They hope that it will end here. Let's see this gentleman here. Hello, good afternoon. Are you here for the rally, obviously?
Obviously, yes.
And why are you here?
Why? Well, it's important to defend our freedom and the freedom of speech. So it's very important and very, exciting to see all these people coming out and defend our freedoms.
And what do you do in Paris?
But I'm living actually here, a bit outside of Paris, since about 20 years now. So it's actually the first time that I see all the people really standing up, and that's very great.
And do you think they'll continue to stand up? Someone said to me this week, they said it's not just for 2 or 3 days we have to stand together. We'll have to stand together for a very long time.
Oh, I think it's definitely true that this has to be the case. If I do it now for 2 or 3 days, probably it will fade away a little bit, but I think it's really a pivotal moment, and people will really continue to struggle for the freedoms and for freedom of speech. Yeah, I think so. It will continue. So what I heard around the offices and people I talk to, I think it's really, how to say, in French you say déclic. It's really an element which says we have to do more than just sit and wait and see. And that will happen, it will go away, it will not be no problem in the future. I think they think it's going to be a problem and they have to do more than just.
Do you think the people around have put up with a lot of extra security?
Yes, I think so. They could do this. They will stand up. They will accept it. Anyway, if you look around it, Vigie Pirat hasn't really been relieved a little, very much so far. So if you go to public transport, you always see security around. So I think it's part of the life. If it's getting too strong, if they try to make a patriot act à la française, probably.
Which is what happened in the United States after the attacks of September 11.
That probably will be. I have to find the right way. It will be very difficult to get this really properly sorted out. They will not accept that their freedom, than what they're standing up for now, will be restricted too much. And on the other hand, on the other side. So thank you.
Well, we'll let you continue in your march. People here making their way. Finally, we're able to leave. The police cordons have been cleared. And let's take a look at this. Is not just a day of the people, it's a day also for officialdom. François Hollande at the head of the march, making his way down Avenue Voltaire. Cameron there, the British Prime Minister David Cameron is there, the German leader Angela Merkel. The leaders of Spain are in the crowds as well. Italy, leaders from the Middle East, so many leaders who've gathered here today in a show of solidarity, a show of strength here in the French capital. And when you look into the crowds, I mean, you can see the Je suis Charlie, Je suis Juif. Very much a reflection of people trying to give support, to show their support, to show their sadness after what different communities, different members of French society have had to endure this week. Let's just get a reflection now from someone who's here and knows very well, Jane Brighton, who's from the Jewish organization, the European Union of Jewish Students. Very sorry for what happened this week at the Jewish supermarket here, where 4 hostages, 4 members of the Jewish community lost their lives. How would you summarize the mood now in the Jewish community?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's a mood of pain, grief, deep shock. But unfortunately, I don't think many people are surprised.
And what do you think a day like this is going to help?
I think it shows solidarity. I think it shows that this is also grief that goes far beyond communal borders. This is something that Europeans feel very deep in their core, and they have clearly come to demonstrate that and stand with all the victims, the families of the victims, and the communities of the victims.
And what do you think will be asked for by members of the Jewish community? In recent days, the security was stepped up at synagogues, and then when the Jewish supermarket was attacked, when there was a hostage-taking incident, people asked, well, why wasn't it protected? The answer was, we simply don't have the forces to protect every institution. Is that a matter of concern?
Well, it's what happens when you're living in a free society. I mean, there is a certain border where you cannot protect yourself anymore. And I think there is also a sense of that we're trying to tell a community to not live in fear, to do what is responsible in terms of security, but to not isolate ourselves, to not close ourselves off.
But as you know, there's been a record number of members of the Jewish community leaving France. It was the largest number ever heading to Israel. Do you think that this kind of a show of solidarity will help to stop that, or this what happened in the last week will just reinforce their concern that they don't have a secure place in France?
Well, I think solidarity is solidarity, but it doesn't improve the security situation. What will matter is in the coming weeks and months is how the community, how the French people come together in terms of addressing the wider security issues, and that will ultimately show if Jewish people will choose to stay in France.
Well, in fact, as we're talking, we can also show pictures of the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, who's come from Israel to join this day of solidarity. He, of course, has repeatedly expressed concern about the attacks against Jewish communities in countries, including France. He's walking as well today with Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian leader. He has also come today in a show of solidarity. Do you think it matters a lot to the Jewish community here that Benjamin Netanyahu decided to come and other Israeli leaders?
Well, first of all, I am from the European organization, so I don't speak from a French point of view. I think part of the community very much feels that there is that supports them, and that a care for Jewish people in the diaspora outside of Israel is there. I think it also matters to people here that heads of state from countries beyond France have also come here. So I think all of that means something to the communities.
And you're a student yourself?
Yes, I am.
And of course, for students, your future is your concern now. When you talk to fellow students, do they feel they have a future here in France, in Europe?
Well, interestingly enough, it's 50-50. I think that represents very much how the Jewish community in Europe feels right now.
Well, let's hope that the balance changes. Thank you very much for joining us on this extraordinary day in Paris, a day where a rally of unity, a rally of strength is getting underway. You can see behind us the people holding up their flags, they're holding up their banners, a lot of smiles. This very, very spirited occasion here, despite all the sadness of the past week, despite the fears of the past week. Today is a day for people really to come together. It's supposed to be, if the phrase is appropriate, more of a feel-good day, but it can only feel good for long if there's real changes across French society in terms of how they deal with threats and challenges like this. Let's cross now back to Michelle Hussein, who's on the other side of Place de la République, to bring you the latest from there.
Please, as you say, the challenges of, administering, policing a gathering like this are just immense. We just had a siren in the square below us. That's a Red Cross vehicle which was doing its best to make its way across the square with some difficulty. You can imagine the logistical issues surrounding a gathering on this kind of scale. But this march, this day, is all about unity. Many questions, though, of course, about what the future holds for France in terms of the jihadi threat, and indeed for Europe. With me now is Thomas Hegghammer, who's an expert in extremism and terrorism, and from the Norwegian Defence Research Establishment. Thomas Hegghammer, the threat level, of course, very high in France at the moment.
Yes, well, I want to stress that it's important to be level-headed about the terrorism threat. In the big scheme of things, terrorism is a small threat to our societies. But having said that, France, along with the UK, faced relatively high terrorism threats in that they have large networks of militant Islamists counting in the hundreds who overwhelm the security services. And that's what happened on Wednesday.
And how great is the connection between the terror threat level and the numbers of European Muslims who have been attracted to fight in Syria?
I do think they're both indicative of the kind of the level of radicalization in a country. And France has the largest contingent of fighters in Syria of all the European countries. They have over 1,000 people who have been there. But of course, in addition to those 1,000, there are others who have not gone out to Syria, who live in France and who are also radicalized. And we've seen in the past 6 months a lot of plots and attacks by sympathizers, people who have not gone to Syria but act at home. So in combination, those two threats are quite challenging for security services.
But given all of that, can you really still call that threat small?
Yeah, if we talk about the security of the state or the well-being of society as a whole, the casualty numbers of terrorism in the West are small compared to many other problems. But of course, terrorism is something special. It does something to us and to our psychology, if you were, as you can see here today. And it sparks fear and panic often. But of course, it can also spark positive reactions, as we've seen here today.
Yeah, and it is very powerful to see the mood of the crowd and the atmosphere in Paris today. But what do you think of the way that some of the response to the events here and previous events have been to characterize it as a war against terrorism? The people who are saying now France is at war with these kinds of extremists, is that the wrong way to approach this?
I think there was a consensus a few years after 9/11 that the war rhetoric wasn't very constructive. It led to overreach and kind of some measures that probably should not have been taken. And it remains to be seen whether this tough rhetoric we're seeing is accompanied by tough measures as well, because the danger there, of course, is that the actual measures are also exaggerated and perhaps counterproductive.
Also, perhaps it does something to the status of those who've taken part in these kinds of attacks, because if you characterize it as a war, then you turn them into warriors.
Yeah, there's definitely something to that. And we see it now, for example, on the internet, how these attackers are being lionized and supported by jihadists online. There's been quite a massive outbreak of support.
For the 3 gunmen of the last few days?
Yes, yes.
Where are you seeing that come from? Political countries?
It's hard to say because this is they're mostly anonymous. But you see the messages on Twitter and to some extent on Facebook and else and on the jihadi forums and in statements by jihadi groups and so on. And it's reasonable to believe that they're coming from a little bit everywhere. Some from the Middle East, but also some from the West.
And how much more have we learned about the background of the 3 gunmen, the Kouachi brothers and Amadi Coulibaly? What was it, do you think, that linked them?
Excuse me, what was it?
How much more have we learned about the 3 of them and their background?
We've learned quite a lot, although questions remain. We know that they have 10-year history of activism, starting in 2003 with the Iraq War. So this is an old network. They've been around for a while. We also know that they traveled to Yemen in 2010 or 11 and linked up with Al Qaeda on the Arabian Peninsula. And we know that they returned presumably with a mission to strike in the US. This was a kind of classical sleeper cell, if you will. So it's not clear whether the operation was directed in detail from the top.
It's interesting that there was a suggestion early on Wednesday and Thursday that perhaps a lot of the focus being on Europeans fighting in Syria and coming back to Europe from Syria, that an older generation like the Kouachi brothers was perhaps overlooked.
Well, yeah, this incident illustrates a problem that's only going to increase in the next few years, which is that came out and then he did this. So there are hundreds of jihadi convicts in prisons across Europe who will be coming out of prison, and that's a challenge for
Thomas, stay with us. I'm just going to look down upon the crowd again, because we've been watching those gathered in Place de la République for some time, and even though the march is now underway, for most of those who are standing in the square below me, it is going to be quite some time before they actually move at all from the positions, because the numbers are so great that those who have already started marching down this Boulevard Voltaire, making very slow progress indeed. So this is going to be a long day for most of those who are taking part. And we're told that the side streets are full back to a distance of 2 to 3. kilometers back to the Gare du Nord, for example. So that gives you a sense of the numbers of people who have come out in Paris today. The IC's joining them, the bereaved families are leaving it, and so many French people from different walks of life coming out into the heart of Paris today in this common course and really waiting very patiently. If I look down at the square, I can just see people standing there, some with children on their shoulders, small children on their shoulders. It's a weekend, of course. Some families decided they wanted to bring their children here, and of course those many banners and slogans, some familiar, Je suis Charlie, and some others as well, many of them calling for unity and a common stand against fanaticism. Thomas Heckhammer, this has been the worst possible way for France to begin a new year, but the fact that there are so many world leaders gathered here shows the chord that these events have struck far beyond France.
Yes, that's definitely true. And in the case of Paris, you sometimes get something positive out of it. We saw that in Norway, for example, after the attacks on the 22nd of July, which had a strong rallying effect. And I think the reaction was a very positive thing for Norwegian society. And what we're seeing here today suggests that, some people will come out.
Well, let's hope so. One of the banners, though, that I saw in the square below are saying the leaders are here, but after that, what? So many questions about how this moment can be harnessed, and of course what the future holds for France as it deals with some of these very searching questions about the ideals of the Republic, about security, and about France's diverse communities as well. Please.
Thank you, Michelle. Michelle mentioning there the many slogans that have been rising from this square. Just look at one of the posters here that's now the new version of Je suis Charlie. These two women, I say bonjour, bonjour. Et votre slogan, Je suis Charlie, juif, flic, musulmane, mais surtout républicaine. So I'm Charlie, Jewish, policeman, Muslim, but most of all, I am a Republican. This is basically a show of solidarity, not just for the journalists who perished from the Charlie Hebdo magazine, the fact that 4 members of the Jewish community lost their lives in the hostage-taking incident at the kosher supermarket east of Paris. Fleet police, 3 policemen, including a young woman, 26 years old, just a trainee, also died this week. Muslim, of course, an important part of the fabric of France, but most of all, Republican, a member of the Republic of France. And we're gathering here in la place de la République. Et pourquoi vous êtes ici? Pourquoi c'est important d'être ici? Why is it important?
C'est important la liberté d'expression et tout. On est tous Charlie. Et voilà, quand on est français et tous Charlie. On est venus pour honorer toutes ces victimes-là. Et voilà.
So everyone, as you said, everyone, we're all Charlie. And the same thing for you? Même pour vous? Je suis Charlie. Voilà.
I am Charlie.
Voilà.
On est tous Charlie.
This is to Charlie. This is one of the rallying cries here. And well, there are many kinds of people calling themselves Charlie here. We're joined here by 2 students from India, Ate and Akash, who've been studying here for the past year in France.
Yes.
Good natured, this crowd is, despite the bitterly cold weather, despite the fact that people have been here for hours this morning. And as you were saying, what is your reaction to the events that you've seen here? Because of course you come from India, which has seen the many of these sorts of attacks, including the attack of the Taj Mahal Hotel that many have compared to what happened here.
So we are in a difficult current situation, and we really feel bad that this thing has happened overall.
Do you welcome here in France?
Yeah, we should welcome. This country is a quiet place, a very warm-hearted country, so this shouldn't have happened.
This shouldn't have happened.
Yes. Even I do feel the same. People here are really warm, like they welcome us. So, but like we really regret what happened in India and for the lives we are lost in the attack on Charlie Hebdo. So yeah, we regret India. It's been like way too much. Like as you said, like in Taj Mahal, like almost 160 people died. But terrorism is like anywhere it is the same. Even if it's 12 or 160, we regret this happened here, and we also show some against the terrorism.
And do you still feel you have a place here in France? You feel safe? You're going to stay?
Yeah, of course we feel safe. It's like say like we are afraid. It's like saying that like we are afraid of terrorism. I don't want to say that. Yeah, we're not afraid. We are not afraid of terrorism. We are safe. Yeah, we are safe here.
And what in coming to France, you spent a year here now. Do you feel this is a united country?
Yes, of course. You can see so many people standing here. It's not about just the France. It's like people from many countries are here. They're living here from like 10, 15 years. Even the Indians, the Pakistanis, and the other West countries. Most of them are welcome here.
You also feel that here as well?
Yeah, there are many religions in France, and everything is united. I've never seen any diversity as such. Like, despite of having so many religions in the same country and the same place, like for example, Paris.
You've never yourself felt any kind of racism here in any kind of way?
No, I've never seen racism over here. Yeah, I've heard of it, but I've never actually faced anything such.
And you as well, racism you felt expressed toward you or people you know?
No, in person I've not felt that. And I don't think so, like there is any racism here. I don't think.
And today you're going to march all the way to the end, to the Place de la Nation?
Yeah, we have been waiting for almost 2 hours. We'll continue doing that.
Well, I'll let you go and make your way to join the others here, hundreds of thousands here. Let's just take a look into the crowd. So, of course, there's people taking selfies, which has become the new gadget of the modern age. Hello? You're making your way there? You don't speak English? Let's get it. That's okay.
Me, near now for freedom.
Yes.
And
vous êtes française?
Je suis française, oui.
Et pour vous, vous voulez faire un photographe parce que c'est un jour historique pour vous, un historic day?
Voilà, aujourd'hui c'est vraiment une journée historique des mémoires pour la France. On est là, c'est pour défendre la liberté, la paix dans le monde.
For the liberty and for peace in the world. Alors, c'est pas juste pour la France.
C'est pour la France, pour toute la terre entière, pour tous les pays dans le monde. Voilà. Nous combattons le terroriste. C'est pour ça qu'on est là.
You're right. That's why she's here. She says it's not just for France. It's for the entire world. Another is Je suis Charlie. Why are you Charlie?
It's for freedom.
Oh, you lost your voice here.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to much.
Did you know you're speaking so much and so loudly here? Let's see whether we can find some other French English speakers. So that's an Italian, and I'm afraid I don't speak Italian. Your leader here is here as well. Let's just look at some of the faces of these people making their way through the square. Bonjour. Bonjour avec une bonne beret ici jolie, with a very lovely beret. Vous êtes un grand-mère, your grandmother. Yes. And you're joining us here in live coverage here on BBC News. We bring you special coverage from La Place de la République as France marks a day of unity, a march for unity, now making its way to the heart of the French capital. More than 1 million people across the country have gathered here, people from beyond France's borders, and more than 40 world leaders here as well, to stand with France, stand against terrorism. I'm joined here by my colleagues who are also reporting live from other parts of the French capital as we bring you special coverage here. People who are making their way and telling us why. Quand vous êtes ici, why are you here?
Je suis là avec mes petits-enfants quelque part, etc., pour la paix, pour une liberté d'expression. Voilà.
Yes, a grandmother here.
Je ressemble vraiment à tous les gens qui sont venus sur cette place de la République.
This is it. She said she She brought her children, people are bringing their friends, their families, people are coming here from all walks of life, of all ages, of all faiths and of no faiths. A moment for France, a moment that's being watched right around the world. The people of France standing up, the people of the world saying no to terrorism. I'm pleased to set with live coverage from the heart of the French capital in La Place de la République, where hundreds of thousands of people have gathered for a march of national unity, now making its way to the French capital.
I'm Michelle Hussein above the square, watching those marchers as they participate in this remarkable show of unity. The numbers here providing a powerful symbol of a France united against terrorism.
And we're going to bring you live coverage of this procession as it makes its way through the French capital. Let's just take a look at the route. All of these people, more than 1 million, expected to gather here today. The streets are absolutely packed. And they'll take 2 routes through the city today. Let's look at them now. One route is going along the Boulevard Voltaire to end at Place de la Nation. A second route marches via the Avenue République, Boulevard de Ménilmontant, and the Avenue Philippe Auguste. And at the very head of the procession are family members who've lost loved ones in the past few days of terrorism here in the French capital and just outside. 12 people in Wednesday's shooting at the Paris offices of the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo. Many of them journalists, but also police officers who died there. And in the 2 days that followed, 4 more people were killed. 17 people in all, including 4 people who are among those taken hostage at a kosher supermarket, a Jewish supermarket on the eastern edge of the French capital. At the end, after a synchronized commando assault at that supermarket and at Dammartin-en-Gueule, a tiny community just north of the French capital, where 3 gunmen have been killed, 2 in Dammartin, 1 in the French supermarket. One other suspect is still at large, a woman from Moudienne, who's now believed to be in Turkey, with some reports that she had already crossed into Syria. That deadly moment of confrontation is over, but the march today is very much a recognition that France still faces other dangers. And the fact that leaders from more than 40 countries have also come to show their solidarity underline that this is not just a threat faced by France, this is a threat facing many around the world. It's saying no to terrorism and yes to unity. We're going to bring you live coverage on this extraordinary event unfolding across the French capital and being watched around the world. My colleague Michelle Hussein is also here watching from the other side of La Place de la République.
At least it is an extraordinary sight. The police have now opened up 2 different routes out of this square, so people will be approaching the Place de la Nation from 2 different angles, which is vital really, because given the immense numbers of people here, it is going to be a long time before some of them get to move at all. Those who I'm looking down at now have been waiting here patiently for some time, and it has really been an extraordinary atmosphere in the square here this morning. People from all different backgrounds are drawn here by a common compulsion, a desire to be a part of this incredible show of unity and show of defiance against terrorism after everything that France has seen unfold in the last few days. So there are posters all around the square commemorating those who died. There are people coming out on the balconies overlooking the square, and you can hear the applause now. There are moments where you have the spontaneous demonstration from the crowd. And one of the striking things, as I look down here, really, it's not just the diversity of the crowd, the fact that there are people of all ages here and representing many different communities in France. That the lack of political banners, for example, mostly there are just French flags, and there are slogans of unity. Je suis Charlie, of course, now so familiar to people right around the world, but also slogans simply calling for France to stand together against fanaticism, saying we are all together, atheists, Christians, Jews, and Muslims. So it is really very moving to look down on this crowd, to think about the emotions that have brought so many different people together in Place de la République, and many others trying to get into the square to start to be part of this march, because those towards the front are making slow progress now, but there are many others held further back in the square who won't be on the move for some time. But nevertheless, it is a patient crowd. It is at times a somber crowd, at times a crowd that breaks into song. For example, we've heard the Marseillaise being sung on several occasions. But really a moment that I think no one who's taken part in it, and perhaps no one who's even watched it on television, wherever in the world they are, will forget. A moment for France to have come together after 3 days of those terrorist attacks, which killed 17 people. And those closest to those 17 dead, the families of the victims, right at the front of this march, President Hollande with them, and earlier joined in that remarkable showing by leaders from across the world, walking for a time amongst the mourners, among the French people, in their own symbol of support and solidarity for what France has been through in the last few days. So it is an immense gathering. 1 million people, perhaps more, won't know until the end of the day, but certainly as far as I can see, it is a sea of humanity. Those in the square, those trying to get into the square, those already walking along the route down to the Place de la Nation, so walking between these two landmarks of central Paris. And fittingly, that route takes them not far from the offices of Charlie Hebdo, the offices which were attacked on Wednesday morning as the staff there were in the midst of their editorial meeting, the moment which marked the beginning of these 3 days of terror. As I look down at the crowd, it's fascinating to see the different backgrounds, the different ages, the fact that people have chosen to bring their children here, despite the fact that this is a very large gathering with its own logistical difficulties, that the Red Cross at one point were trying to get through the crowd. But it's also a crowd that's attracted people from well beyond Paris and beyond France, because there are flags from different countries that are also represented here. These are the kinds of moments which don't happen very often in a nation's history. And when President Hollande and the French government called for this march to come out, they said, come out in numbers. And that is indeed what we have seen today. People have come out in numbers. The families have been at the forefront. And of course, a lot of attention on those world leaders who are gathered here. But really, people seem to be taking so much strength just from the fact that they look around in a crowd of this size and they realize how many others feel the same as they do. That is the point of a unity march like this. So from Place de la République, I'm watching people go right along the route, and Tim Wilcox is there along the boulevard of Voltaire. You'll see the marchers come past each other.
we are extraordinary creatures, as you've been describing, a whole sea of people. We were right in the Place de la République when the march started, and then as we moved down, all those thousands of people who've been queuing patiently, young, old, Jewish, Muslim, every faith here, determined to show their unity against these terrorist attacks. Now you can probably hear people singing the Marseillaise once again. This boulevard absolutely packed, every single inch of it, and the side streets as well, with hundreds of thousands of people. Many, not just from Paris, but from outside Paris as well, who've come here today to show their unity. You can see the tricolors being flown there as well, in this great sway of people down from Place de la République. The problems we're having as trying to broadcast here is that everyone is using their mobile phones, and some of the phones have gone down, which is why we've now just come up one floor of a bar we managed to get into. And I think the owner of this bar is Veronique, who's with me now. Have you ever seen anything like this before?
Never, never. And nous sommes très contents. Nous sommes très contents.
We're very happy because you're French.
Oui, je suis française et les Français ont toujours résisté.
She's saying the French always resist. I don't know if we can just have a few more words in English, because your English is good. Why is it so important for people to be here today?
Because never that. We don't want to see never that. We prefer to stand up and not across.
Not on your knees.
Yes,
not on your knees.
Yes.
Which is what Stéphane Charbonnier said, the editor of Chalia.
Absolutely. What is very important is Boulevard Voltaire. And Voltaire was a very good idea.
Very good thinker, a writer, philosopher.
It's very important for us. And also the country is united.
United.
Yes, the country is united.
Were you worried or frightened about today though? Did you think maybe there could be another attack? Were people scared? Est-ce que tu as peur?
Non, j'aurais jamais peur.
She said she's never afraid.
Il ferait toujours la tête haute.
And she's
I want to stand up always.
All right. Thank you very much indeed, Veronique. So, Veronique, who owns this bar, but as you can see, it's going to take many, many hours for these streets to clear. The atmosphere, almost like a carnival at some stages. Somebody's birthday was announced, and immediately hundreds of people around her began singing happy birthday. There is an absence of fear here. I think for a lot of the international journalists, Michelle, who've been covering the story for the last few days, that there were fears that perhaps this would be an example or an excuse for a backlash. But everyone has come out in force today to make absolutely clear the message that France will not be cowed, will not be frightened by what has happened in the last few days. This is not the way France wants to see itself. It feels itself part of a European problem with extremism, and the people here determined not to let themselves be beaten by that. We will carry on trying to pull people out of this massive demonstration over the next few hours, but as you can see, it is absolute gridlock here, very difficult to move around. But I'm going to hand now back to Lise Doucet, who I think is in a different position, a little further up from where I am now. Lise, over to you.
Yes, Tim, we're also caught here in the huge crowds that are just slowly making their way across, even just trying to get across this densely packed gathering of people. That in itself is hard. But let's just take a moment to see some of the. So here we have again Je suis Charlie, Sally with the E, of course, dripped in blood, and then she's added International. France, France is in mourning from the day. 7/11, and what? There's something on the back of it. Oh, look, wait. And this is your very detailed message about this is what people hope. This is going to be the day of change, jour de changement, peace, amour, love, unité. And s'il vous plaît, please respectez les valeurs républicaines. Please respect the values of the Republic. Liberté, fraternité, égalité. You hear that so many times, you see it everywhere, because It's on the posters, but it's also up there on the monument, the rallying cry here in the French Republic that's gone down through the centuries, and it's resonating again. Yes, yes. Look at the flags that are there waving, not just the flags of France, the flags of many countries around the world, to feel that this is not just the battle of France, this is also the battle of many countries. We can show you not just the people who are marching today, but also the leaders who are marching. The French President François Hollande at the head of the march, making their way down Boulevard Voltaire, and with him, flanking him in his march of solidarity, leaders from Africa, including the President of Mali, Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. President of Niger is there as well, Mahamadou Issoufou. You've got the leaders of the Middle East, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, and also from Europe, David Cameron, from the United Kingdom, Angela Merkel of Germany. And I think we can see in there Jean-Claude Juncker as well, who's from the head of the European Commission. From many places, many parts of the world. President of Ukraine is there, Poroshenko is there. Well, leaders will speak at some point today, but this is also a day for the people to speak. And we're joined here by Celine is your name, you're French, and Alex, you're from Australia. Reminder, Australia, Sydney had its own incident of an attack right in the heart of the capital. Celine, why did you, on this cold day, why did you decide to come out?
Yeah, I felt it was very important to take part to this event, to this demonstration, to show that we're not afraid. We're not afraid to fight for our values and values we believe in. France is a great country, and it's really emotional to see that all the people were able to come together and ensure this.
Have you not had moments of being afraid?
Yes, of course, and even yesterday evening we were discussing should we come or not today, because we're afraid that something would happen. It would be the perfect moment for terrorists to attack maybe. But then we said no, we need to be there and to show that we're not afraid and we're going to fight.
What is your main concern now about the future of France going forward?
I think it would be that people forget. They go back to their day-to-day lives and forget that there is an issue in France that we need to solve. There are some issues that needs to be discussed, like the integration of Muslim people with a demographic that is changing in France, and we need to better integrate them and them to feel that they are French, and you can see here there are so many Muslim and Jewish and Christian people all together. So I think this is the main point of today.
And it's a question facing not just France, but also Australia. Alex, why did you decide to come today?
Well, my background's French, and I just thought it would be an important day in the history of the country and of the city. And I was keen to be a part of a moment that I thought would go down in history. I think there are more people here than have been in a single place in Paris since its liberation. So it's a big day for the community.
And do you think something will be achieved by this day, aside from this very strong message of people standing together?
Well, I think the danger is that an act like what happened last week would drive people to the extremes. And a day like today is a sign that people are not willing to be pushed to the extremes, and they want to be brought together, and that's very important.
When you were here in France and you saw what happened in Sydney, where there was hostage taking there as well, what were your reflections?
Well, I think that the similarities between the two events are that those events are acts of barbarity, and that the height of culture and civilization is to be able to laugh at oneself and to take things lightly. And that's what the magazine stood for and stands for, and that's what this event is all about.
And that's important in Australia too, in a different way, but still important.
It's important everywhere.
We had a view from France and a view from Australia, and I think we can have now a view from Tunisia. What is your name?
I'm Mehdi, and I'm from Tunisia, and I'm here to send a message because we are all united against the terror. We fight the terror in Tunisia, and we are fighting the terror here in France.
Do you really believe that all of France is united? Because, as you know, many members of the Muslim community are expressing fear now.
It's not the Muslim community. It's extremists, crazy people. They are not representative of the community. The Muslim community, the Tunisians are different, are tolerant, and are here with the French people, with the Jews, with all the countries to fight against the terror.
And do you worry now when among the politicians there's discussion of what will happen with the far right party and anti-immigration party? There is concern that after this event that the popularity of this party could actually increase.
Yeah, we are also here to say this to these extremist parties. That we are not like these criminals, and we are friends. We are friends. We are with the French people, and we are not extremists. We are not radical, but we are for the democracy, for the laicité.
It's almost like religion in France. It's a secularism, but you need to say that the separation of the church and state.
In Tunisia, we also have the secularism too.
And of course, that this week that a policeman of Tunisian origin, a Muslim, was killed in the attack on Charlie Hebdo. This must have resonated in your community.
And even 3 of the people killed were from Tunisia. And even in Libya, 3 days ago, 2 Tunisian journalists had been killed. So we are all united against the terror.
So you feel this is very much a global fight. We're hearing it from Tunisia, from Australia, from France. This is a day to stand up with France, and this is a day to stand up for those values that can prevent this kind of violence from occurring again here in France and in many other parts of the world. But everyone who's here today knows that if it happened once, it can happen again. And that is why the interior ministers are here from across Europe to discuss the kind of security measures that can be taken to guard against the threat of violence, but also to keep a balance between the liberties for which everyone here has come out today in defense of, and also better security. It's a very, very difficult question. It must be on the minds of all the leaders who are also marching today. But let's get another perspective on this march. My colleague Michelle Hussein is on the other side of Place de la République, where people are now making their way slowly but surely, and still in a very good, very patient mood.
Lisa, I have a vantage point above the crowd looking down on Place de la République, and it is a very diverse crowd, diverse in every way, including age. People have brought children, some very young children out here with them. So those young enough to be on their parents' shoulders it's probably the safest place for them to be in a crowd of this size. But a moment ago, there was an immense roar that went up from those gathered immediately below where we are, and that was because they were finally starting to move. They've been here for some time, but when I say move, it is really they are inching along because it's still quite a long way from where they are to the front of the square and to Boulevard Voltaire and the parallel street next to it, which the police are also allowing people to go down. And looking down, you start to get more of a sense of the emotions that have drawn people here, because when you look at their banners and their placards, it's not only Je suis Charlie, it's also blasphemy is not a crime. And another huge roar coming up from the crowd. Normally you'd be able to look down from where I am and see the pavement and then the road, but it's just a mass of humanity. You can only see where the pavement is for the line of trees, and there are people sitting and standing even on top of the bus stops where normally traffic would pass through. But I can see one group with giant pencils being held aloft, a symbol of free speech and a tribute to the cartoonists who were among those who died in the Charlie Hebdo attacks. Other banners: love is the strongest, together today, together tomorrow. And worth reflecting on the fact that this is a moment of unity for France. That is clear. These numbers show the immense emotion and the feeling and the powerful compulsions that have brought people out on the streets. But there is no doubt that France is going to face many challenges now, and not just security challenges, also immense challenges in terms of relations between its communities. The Jewish community, particularly under attack in the last few days, and and questions too about the place of the Muslim community in French society. Well, as the crowd moves slowly to join the actual route of the march, which will take them not far from the offices of Charlie Hebdo itself, some of those, of course, who are still in the side streets of the square won't be on the move for some time, but everyone is here because they want to be part of what is turning out to be a remarkable day in France's recent history. At least you're the other side of the square from me, and you've seen all of this unfold for the last few days, including moments in this very square where a whole range of emotions have been felt.
Yes, Michelle, this square, La Place de la République, which of course is an homage to the French Republic, has been a main gathering place ever since the tragic events on Wednesday, the shooting at the offices of Charlie Hebdo. It has become a symbol, if you like, and a magnet for so many people across the city and across this country who wanted to come and to show a gesture of some kind, any kind, at this momentous moment in their country's history. We've seen here, first of all, in the square, people who spontaneously came to light a candle, to hold up one of the many slogans like Je suis Charlie, I am Charlie, that we're seeing here, dotted across this mass gathering here today. And we've seen how then the day after, when France stood in a moment of silence at 12 o'clock, it was a real emotion, a moment of raw emotion, where people held hands, not just made a circle around this place, but held hands in the rain and in the cold. And then when the moment of silence ended, and all you could hear was the tolling of the bells of the Cathedral of Notre Dame, people burst into spontaneous applause, as if that moment of sadness was followed by a moment of show of strength and solidarity. And now today, again, Place de la République in a very different way. What was really pronounced in the last few days in the square was the silence. And people could find no words for the unspeakable violence. But today is a day for people to shout, to laugh, to wave their flags, to wave their placards, to really say as loud as they can that this is a day that matters. And that is in fact what the Prime Minister Manuel Valls said yesterday, that everyone in France must turn out and show, as he put it, their love for this liberty that now seems to be at risk. Someone has just given me a flower.
Someone has unfurled a black banner with the word Liberté written, spray painted, I think, in white on it. And there are moments of certainly togetherness in this gathering, but as you said, also moments to laugh, moments of joy. The crowd below me just looked up because someone had thrown a giant paper plane with the words Charlie written on it down to the crowd below. So there's an immense feeling of unity, those taking part in the march, a camaraderie, some of them draped in the French flag, some of them carrying the French flag, others wearing a sash in the colours of the Republic, but many wearing no symbols or slogans of any kind at all, simply showing their emotions by being here. And this has happened just at the start of a new year, but in the past 12 months in particular, you can think of all those places in the world that have felt the pain of terrorism and the fallout from terrorism most acutely. Countries that you and I have reported from, in my case most recently from Pakistan after those Peshawar attacks. But the reality of those attacks in different parts of the world perhaps show why so many countries represented by their leaders have felt that what has happened in France has struck a chord with them.
Well, yes, Michelle, and I mean, a lot of the people who are gathered in this square today who come from countries far and wide would say, of course, that terrorism isn't new. We've seen people here from Palestinian territories, we've seen people here from Sri Lanka, We've seen people who have lived with the threat of terrorism and the reality of terrorism for decades. And I think if we look at the past year, what is most pronounced about that year is that those places which have seen violence all too often are seeing the worst kind of savagery that they have never seen. And places, for example, the capital of my own country, Canada, Ottawa, saw an unprecedented attack there of someone claiming to have links with Islamic militancy, also in the Australian capital, Sydney. So we're seeing that these terrorism and the modern methods of terrorism are being enacted in places where it wasn't expected before. And so much talk in the past year of how the wars in Iraq and Syria are now just not Middle East wars anymore. They are wars that draw in almost every country around the world with the flow of foreign fighters, men and women, who are drawn to the cause of the Islamist movements, the extreme Islamist movements, most notably that which calls itself now the Islamic State, and raising concern. The concerns really were played out this week in France, that people who have become radicalized, alienated from their own societies, are going and using weapons, using the techniques that they're learning in this worst kind of training to fight wars abroad, and they will bring back that training and that hatred, that sense of us and them, back to their own societies. And what's very interesting too, that you hear a lot of people saying this is France's 9/11. What has changed though in the last 13 years, the attacks of 9/11 came from outside the United States. And the attacks that so many here are coming out to speak against are attacks that come from within. And so the big question now for everyone who's here, everyone watching this, is what percentage of their country are those predominantly Muslims, if not exclusively, but predominantly Muslims, who are willing to take up violence of the most extreme kind to fight back against the societies they feel are not their own.
And the challenge for Europe in particular now, more than ever before, is to how to confront that particular challenge of homegrown extremism. That is what France has seen unfold in the last few days, but of course it is not the only country, far from the only country, which has seen its own citizens, for example, go to fight in Syria. There are hundreds who have gone from Britain, there are others from the Nordic countries, an estimated 1,000 people from France. So this is a moment where many people are asking questions about the connection between all of those conflicts. But in answer to all of that alienation, I'm looking down at some of the slogans that I'm seeing, the banners in the crowd below me, and it's really the opposite of that. This is a crowd where, in so many different ways, expressing togetherness. They're expressing unity, they're expressing love. One banner I'm looking at, love is the answer. Another championing France's identity, the simple laicité, secularism. And another one with the banner, Charlie Akbar, Charlie is great. And the offices of Charlie Hebdo not at all far from where the marchers are now, and just off the route that they will take down to Place de la Nation. But at least, you know, I said they were starting to be on the move, but it is going to be a long day for people here. It is going to take them a long time until they inch down the route that has already been taken by the relatives at the front of the march and by President Hollande, and for a short time by the world leaders who joined the marchers. No one minds that. There is no sign of impatience. There are simply people below me who are proud to be taking part in this day of powerful symbolism for France.
A day of powerful symbolism. It will be a very long day, Michelle, but it's been a very long and in moments a very terrifying week for many people here in France. An extraordinary week in which people were shocked by the kind of violence in their own capital, just outside their capital. And it's going to take a very long time. Everyone knows, everyone recognizes, not just people here, but people who have come from other countries to be part of this day of solidarity. to confront the real threats, the real dangers within their societies. Questions about the integration of communities which are now part of the fabric of France. And this week, the French Prime Minister Manuel Valls emphasized how the Jewish community of France is very much part of France, and France wouldn't be France without what is the largest Jewish community across Europe. And similarly, the Muslim community in France is the largest across Europe and a fast-growing Muslim population. The vast majority of them are part of France. They are connected to France. They share the values of the people. And they are still there out here today in great numbers. And the people here are nodding when they hear me. They come from all faiths and no faiths here. People coming, a lot of people just saying to us that they're here because they support the values of the Republic. People here now, women calling with the Je suis Charlie, with the headlines from the papers, carrying flowers, carrying banners. I'm just going to, before I go back to Michel, I'm just going to go down and see. Bonjour, vous parlez français? Vous parlez anglais? You speak English? A little bit. Vous êtes d'où? Vous êtes français d'abord, mais...
Je suis français, bien sûr.
Mais vous êtes venu d'où, votre famille?
I am only français.
Only French, and you?
I'm French, I'm Gabonese, Central Africa.
You're from Central Africa?
Yeah.
And how long have you been in France?
From Gabon.
From Gabon.
I grew in this country.
Yes.
And the reason there is no freedom in Gabon, the reason why I'm fighting here for the freedom.
And of course, there are African leaders here today. The president of Mali, the president of Niger is here, the leader from North Africa.
The reason why I don't understand why the Gabonese president is here. Those journalists have been in jail in Gabon, and I don't understand why they can come here.
So these are the names of the journalists in Gabon.
Yeah.
Désiré Enamé, Jonas Mulenda, Francis Edo Eyen. So those are journalists. And I think this is a reminder too that it's not just, sadly, the journalists in Charlie Hebdo, including 4 of their best-known, much-loved cartoonists who perished this week, that it comes at a time, which is the most deadliest time for journalists worldwide, who are just doing their job and are being murdered, assassinated, and also being sent to jail.
So one fight. Yes. So one fight for freedom.
It's a world fight, yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. Et vous aussi, vous pensez que cette bataille mondiale, c'est pas world battle?
Pour la liberté, donc pour l'union.
For the union.
Yes. On est pour l'union.
Vous vous sentez menacé ici? Do you feel threatened?
C'est un choc. On est
un choc.
Bien sûr, c'est un choc parce qu'on ne s'attendait pas qu'on peut attaquer certains journalistes comme ça. Et vraiment, donc c'est un choc. Tout le monde est choqué.
Everyone is still shocked. Et ça va changer quelque chose? It will change something?
On espère, oui. On espère.
Il faut la fermeté.
It won't change anything.
La justice française ne marche pas bien. Les gens sont arrêtés 2 mois après relâchés.
So people are stopped and 2 months later they're given away.
Il faut la loi régler ça. La loi, la fermeté, c'est la solution, c'est tout.
So you need the law, yes.
Il faut tout simplement que tout le monde se sente français. Tout simplement. Il ne faut pas exclure les musulmans de France parce que tout le monde est français et c'est la France avant tout, la République avant tout. Voilà.
So it's the French. Everyone must simply be French. Everyone must be a part of the Republic, including members of the Jewish community. You've decided to come out to do what? Why are you here?
I came here today to say stop to anti-Semitism in France.
Is there a lot of anti-Semitism in France?
Yes, very much. And
how do you feel it? How do you see it in your life?
We feel anti-Semitism everywhere, almost every day. A lot of communities.
Do people stop you in the street? Have there been? Of course, there was the attack on the kosher supermarket in the past few days. 4 members of the Jewish community died. What else do you see in your own daily life?
In daily life, every day you take the subway or something like that, you feel people look at you and with some curse, so a lot of anti-Semitism. 2 days ago, 4 people got killed just because they're Jews. So we came here today to say stop with our message for the government is to be strict and to stop all those people that they do extremely, and they said this because of their religion, which is not true. Any religion don't ask to kill people, so we came here to say stop.
And do you think things are going to change now? All of the French leaders have said that they are going to take measures to protect the Jewish community. Jewish leaders met President Hollande this morning.
I don't know, and I don't feel anything right now, but I hope that it's going to stop.
Are you going to stay in France? As you know, many members of the Jewish community are leaving.
What?
Are you going to stay in France? A lot of members of the Jewish community have left.
I am a rabbi of a Jewish community here, so I'm here. And for now, yeah, we stay in Paris, and we hope that the government will do the necessary for us.
And as a rabbi, what's the message to your community?
To be calm, not to panic, not to go on the panic. That we hope that the government will do what they have to do. But of course, everyone is scared. Everyone doesn't feel comfortable these days.
Thank you very much. I'll let you go along to the march now. And so many people here from many walks of life. Let's give you one. This woman here has been waiting to speak. In your French?
No, I'm not French. I'm actually half American, half English.
Half American, half English. And why did you come out today?
Because I live in Paris and I wanted to show support for all of the people that we live with in our neighborhood. And the fact that I'm from Boston in America, and we have had a terrible tragedy there last year as well, terrorism in the Boston area. So I'm just here to show my support and hopes that we can all be human beings.
Did you remember the terrible events of the Boston Marathon when you saw what was happening in Paris this week?
Of course, my husband was there, and I was there just afterwards. And so I was in Trinity Church where the debacle took place, and being here and having something else happen again on my doorstep is very sad indeed.
And as someone who's got American and British heritage, what do you think is very distinctive about what's happening in France today?
The fact that people are coming out and showing that their love for each other, that's what it really comes down to, I think.
Well, we'll let you, I know you've been waiting patiently in the cold here along with everyone else to join this procession toward Place de la Nation, which is the final destination for this rally. We talked about a rally that would last a few hours along a 2-mile route, but it's going to take a lot longer, but nobody here, at least for now, seems to mind that. We're going to continue our special coverage here from all points of the rally, but let's bring back in my colleague Michelle Hussein.
This is a remarkable gathering, a gathering that, among other things, features pencils and paper. There are giant pencils being held aloft by some of the marchers as they try and edge towards the side of the square that opens out into Boulevard Voltaire, and that will eventually, I say eventually because it is slow with these numbers involved, will eventually take them down to Place de la Nation. It involves paper because occasionally we're also seeing paper planes being dropped down at the crowd from some of those above. It's a gathering with spontaneous moments like that, moments of applause, moments of song, and looking down into the crowd, there are different stories that are told by the banners that people hold. Love is the strongest reads one, another saying, two's you need, two Charlie, we are all united, we are all Charlie. Watching all of this with me is René Kaplan, blogger and journalist from the French newspaper Libération, and it is an extraordinary sight.
It's incredibly moving. I've never seen this kind of density. I was meant to be on about an hour and 45 minutes ago, but that's how long it took to traverse the square, the place, which is I've never seen this kind of human density. And you would think that there would be some nerves or some fraying. People are very good natured, people are laughing. People have been standing around for 2.5 hours waiting to move. But waiting patiently. I think there's just a tremendous amount of goodwill.
And what were people saying as you walked with them in the crowd? I mean, obviously drawn together in a common cause.
There's a sense of almost lightheartedness in that Charlie spirit. One sign that got people really chuckling, which I thought was fantastic, was a young man holding up a sign saying, "I'm Muslim, don't panic." And that's very much the Charlie spirit. And I think there's a sense of people appropriating that, a sense of people saying, look, this is tense, I'm sitting around this dense crowd, but we're here together. There's less of a sense of maybe wound and less of a sense of hurt than we felt in the past few days, and more of a sense of, you know what, we're here, we're good natured, we're carrying on. It's very palpable.
Because in our coverage, we've been reflecting on the change of emotions and the shifting mood. And of course, people have been through many things as they've seen the story and the detail of what happened unfold over the last few days. But I can see it, again, looking from the banners that tell different stories, people asking questions about what happens next. The world leaders are here today, but after that, what?
It's a very good question. It's always a question after tragedies like this. I was in American. I was in New York with 9/11. There's a sense of unity, and then what next? The plan here is somewhat clear. There's going to be another issue of Charlie Hebdo happening soon. They're being hosted by Libération. There'll be a sense of regrouping, even though there's a whole, in terms of that journal, a whole brain trust that was essentially wiped out. But there's a sense of also France. How do we now react to terror? How do we react to the fact that these were listed and surveilled criminals or former convicts? I think there will be a shift in politics as well.
And two communities particularly affected by this in different ways. The Jewish community, which found itself under savage attack, and the last 4 victims all died in that kosher supermarket that was targeted on Friday, and also the Muslim community, some of whom will fear a backlash, and we've already seen evidence of that in France.
I think that this is going to exacerbate the tension that we've seen, especially in the past year. We've heard this number a lot in recent days, but 2014 has seen the largest number of French Jewish immigrants to Israel ever. In fact, I think they may be the lead in terms of Aliyah, immigration to Israel in the past year. There is a sense of who is going to stick around, who is going to stay, who's going to go. There's a sense of both being unwelcome, which is very, very ironic. This will need a lot, I think, of bridge building, and there is a sense, a little bit of a wait and see. And this is why I think that more than anything, it's time for a political move and a political statement, and I think people are sensing that this is the time that Hollande needs to be present more than ever. Manuel Valls, the Minister of the Interior as well, because if there isn't a more government-driven sense of bridge building, there is a sense of loss.
Because there's certainly been a lot of people have been articulating the values of the Republic, those central values, liberté, égalité, fraternité, enshrined from the time of the French Revolution. I mean, France would say that this is a country where a sense of national identity is very clear, isn't it, what it means to be French? And yet there are those whom it has excluded.
I think that's actually one of the fundamental problems, and one of the fundamental sources of tension is that in the Muslim community there's a clear sense of exclusion and of perpetuated and unresolved exclusion. And to some extent the theories differ, but many people believe that maybe one of the sources of sometimes the radicalization of elements of the Muslim community in prisons or in low income and low opportunity communities. On the other hand, there's the Jewish community, which has been here a long time, which is considerably more assimilated. And yet likewise beginning to feel a sense of being left behind or being excluded. There is, in some sense, a necessity for probably a reevaluation of what it means to be French, or how you make people who are French feel French. And this will be a discussion I think we're going to hear a lot of in the next few days.
Again, a moment where we're seeing this tremendous chanting come up from the crowd. This often happens at moments just when they get a sense that they're going to be able to move a little bit forward, but it is often just a little bit forward.
I can see a Not Afraid banner being held aloft by someone, and of course, well, French flags, but not just French flags, Renee. Flags of many countries, the European flag, the Israeli flag, the Turkish flag. I saw a Chinese flag earlier.
Ukrainian flags. I've also seen flags of different groups and different organizations. It really is an eclectic, multicolor demonstration, which again is not always typical of France, where marches do tend to be more politically driven. This is really, I think, intensely visceral. It's intensely heartfelt. It's about Charlie. It's about liberty of expression. It's about something people think of as being not just very French, but right now very European, especially in a year where we did see things in Ukraine, where we did see things all over all over Europe, and that's part of what I think is adding to what makes this different and unusual as marches and demonstrations go in France, where we have a lot of marches and demonstrations. It's a culture that does that a lot. This one's very different. It's much more eclectic.
What will it have meant to people to see, well, all of these flags represented, but also this tremendous sense of international support represented in person by the leaders who have marched for a time on the streets of Paris today?
I think that's very important for the sense of wound and the sense of vulnerability. So much of French media in the past few days has really been talking about c'est notre 11 septembre, it is our 9/11. Many different analogies have been made, but the reality is that there's a really deeply felt sense of wound and of vulnerability. And this kind of rallying, this kind of leaders coming out, leaders who haven't been getting along, coming out, marching together is symbolically, and we are purely in the 100% symbolic today, is incredibly important in terms of healing wounds and feeling like, over 10 years ago now, everyone was American. Today, everyone is French.
But beyond the symbolism, you have to ask, what does the future hold? Not least in terms of the response to this, because the security services in the United Kingdom, for example, are very clear when they warn that they will not be able to prevent every attack.
It's a very good question. As to what extent are we able to protect ourselves from anything? That's why I think it's going to be an important interior political moment and international political moment to seize. There is a sense that there is a lot that French government is not monitoring as they should be, whether it's the kind of radicalization that we're seeing in jails. That's certainly what happened in the case of all three of the hostage takers. All three are radicalized in prisons in France. There's also a sense of there not necessarily being as tightly controlled communication between the different secret services. Again, 2 of these hostage takers were signaled by U.S. secret services to French secret, or U.S. intelligence to French intelligence. I think there will have to be clear signs of a change in surveillance and a change in general communication. Otherwise, I think there is going to be a very deleterious sense of social inequity, of social instability. Already France was down, and France could plunge further. Yeah, down economically and down in terms of morale, down in terms of outlook and a sense of place in the world. France slid from 5th to 6th position in the world in terms of economic position just last week. And that's a reflection more generally of 2 to 3 years of recession that's really deeply influenced the French spirit. And I think there's a real turning point now. And in a terrible way, these kinds of dramatic moments can be effective turning point moments, symbolically, politically, and then hopefully socially.
It is a really difficult one for any government, the question of how to respond, because, of course, in many ways, a crowd like the one gathered below me wants to see something done, but what that something is, very difficult to define.
It's difficult, I think, to define for anybody in the crowd, well, what exactly can the government do? Many people are asking themselves the question that you just asked, well, what more can it? How can we really be protected? This was sort of arbitrary violence. It's, this is not the US, but it's so easy to get a gun. On the other hand, I think some people do feel, especially in France, that something sacrosanct was violated, and that is the freedom of expression, that is the freedom of the press. And I think that's why small but significant gestures could actually go a long way. Getting out the next issue of Charlie Hebdo, announcing a different approach to surveillance. That's why I also think there's such a massive manhunt now around the wife or companion of one of the hostage takers. There needs to be clear, more than symbolic gestures.
And indeed, people detained, among them people who knew the first 2 guns.
Absolutely.
And if you're just joining us now on BBC News, we're bringing you live coverage from La Place de la République, the main gathering place today for a march of national unity. A march that's being joined not just by an estimated crowd of 1 million across the French capital, but also by world leaders. More than 40 world leaders, presidents, kings, queens, prime ministers, and senior officials have converged on the French capital, Paris, today in a show of solidarity and strength against terrorism. So huge are the crowds that there's gridlock across the French capital. Let's just look at these scenes at some of the Paris metro stations where there were so many people. People were stuck inside, couldn't get in and couldn't get out. Public transport is free today, and that is why people have been using it to try to get here. 7 main roads lead into Place de la République, and people came however they could to drive to be here for this extraordinary moment in French history. And making history today as well are the leaders who come from far and wide to march with President Hollande of France. Leaders from Africa, you can see the President of Mali, Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta here, the President of Niger, Mahamadou Issoufou, European leaders like David Cameron from the United Kingdom, Angela Merkel of Germany, leaders of Spain and Italy are also here. The head of the Netherlands, the Prime Minister of the Netherlands is here. Jean-Claude Juncker of the European Commission. Leaders of the Middle East, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, Mahmoud Abbas from the Palestinian Authority. All coming together today to say, not just a tribute to the 17 who died here in 3 days of terror, but also to say that the threat faced by France is not a French threat alone. As I speak, the Marseillaise, the French national anthem, rises again from this crowd, making its way slowly out to join the procession. As you hear us, you say you got your son here. Why was it important for you to be here?
It's important because I'm a Muslim. Me and my son, we are born in France. And for us, we are all together, Charlie. For us, Islam is not it's a religion of peace, not a religion of war or terrorism.
And how old is your son? Vous avez quel âge? 7 ans. He's 7 years old.
7 years old, yes.
You worry about what's your name? Yes. Yassine. Do you worry about Yassine's future?
Yes, I'm worried for his future. I want him to live in. Yes, in peace, in a country of peace, a country we all people can live together.
Do you feel that you felt threatened as a Muslim here in France?
Yes, no, I'm a little frightened to live here and for my parents, for my children, my wife.
Where are your parents from?
My parents from Algeria. They come from in the 70s.
Well, I hope that you and Yassine will be safe here. Yes. Merci beaucoup. And look behind us, the Indians in France, land contre the terrorism. India against the terrorism. You've all gathered here today. Why was it important?
This is important for us because we are coming from a democratic country where the liberty of the press is very important. So we come to defend the liberty of press also at the same time.
There's a very vibrant press in India. Did it affect you personally, the attack on the Charlie Hebdo cartoonists, the journalists there, the police officers there?
Of course, because I'm a regular reader of Charlie Hebdo. And the reason why I was reading Charlie Hebdo, because these guys, they really defend the liberty. What is liberty of the press? This is very important for them.
The cartoons didn't offend you in any way? Because it's a very French kind of cartoon.
Because I have done my studies in France, so I know it is very, for me it is quite easy. And I'm living here since some years in France, so the cartoons, it is okay for very nice cartoon for me, you know.
So it's a French moment, it's a moment of India. They're holding We Are Charlie. This is where you see everywhere across this square. If I look across it, I see The flags are waving, people are holding flowers in the air, they're holding pencils and pens. They're holding up the flags of their own country if they're not from France, and holding up a placard, all to send a very strong message today from the heart of the French capital. A message of solidarity, a message of strength against the threat of terrorism. Welcome to BBC News. I'm Lise Doucette in La Place de la République, in the heart of the French capital. We're bringing you special coverage today for a march of national unity. An estimated crowd of 1 million strong are moving across the French capital, Paris, in a show of solidarity and strength. A tribute to the 17 people who perished in 3 days of terror here in the French capital, and a very strong statement that the nation will stand together against the threat of terrorism. This is not a day for France alone. Leaders from nearly 50 countries, presidents, kings, queens, prime ministers, senior officials, have come from countries, regions from around the world to say that the threat that faces France this week, that France still faces, is not only a French threat alone. It is a threat being faced globally. And people today here in France, joined by others from many countries around the world, are saying we're going to stand together. Today is a day to show a national unity, a unity in the face of violence. But everyone who's gathered here, and they've gathered from far and wide, know that when this day is over, the same problems, the same challenges will emerge. Well, let's just get a sense of some of the mood emerging from this crowd. My colleague Tim Wilcox is also here on the other side of the square.
Lisa, you join me about half a mile down the Boulevard Voltaire from where you're standing in Place de la République, just close to the Charlie Hebdo offices, so about 100 meters just behind me here. The crowd is going absolutely wild, and let me tell you why. Not only as tribute to the journalists and cartoonists who died at Charlie Hebdo, but this policeman up here, one of several marksmen along the rooftops of this long boulevard, occasionally looks down, the crowd looks up, and he salutes them, and the crowd then cheers. The crowd shouting their support for the police, for what they have been through in this last week, which, as you say, has seen 17 people killed. He has been now raising his arm, and look at the reaction from the crowd below. One of his colleagues just alongside him as well. And this point here, this junction, just to the right, is where the offices of Charlie Hebdo were and indeed will be, even though they are working under the Libération newspaper for the moment, about to put that print run out of 1 million copies, many times more than the 60,000 that they used to do on a weekly basis. As far as the numbers are concerned here, and I think from what I had just seen in the last few hours, many more than 1 million, and as you say, Lise, of all ages, people from outside Paris as well, young and old. The policeman once again acknowledging the cheers of the crowd and saluting, and now the crowd just moving on. Let's just speak to a man here who works where we're standing. We've had real problems with our signals because so many people using their Wi-Fi, but this is Julien, who owns the restaurant here where we're standing. Have you seen anything like that?
No. First time happened, and for sure it's going to be the history, you know?
Yeah.
Today will be history.
And why is it so important, do you think? Why do you think people have come out in these numbers?
Because it's not just for France, you know, it's for all wide world, you know, it's for freedom, you know, and people are fighting against difference, you know, people are very crazy now, people are thinking God said them to kill someone, but we want to say no. God said love the other one, see? Love everyone.
What about the problems that France seems to have with its former colonies and the people living here in Paris? Is there racism here in France?
Yeah, there is a lot. And I think we must say that those people who killed them, they're born in France, you know, they were at school in France, and they are our product of our society. So maybe we have to think about what we said, what we did, because for them it's very hard now to find a job, you know, to live, to be able to go to school. They live far from Paris. It's very hard for them. So I think we have to consider those people like
the Jewish community and the Muslim community both say they feel
yes. Jewish as well. But I think there is a big fight in another region of the world, and Israel got his country. And because of Palestine, because of many things happened in the world, so people come in Europe where there is all the television, all the journalists, you know, to show the world that this can happen in Europe, in big countries, in big cities. So very hard.
But how does the racism show itself, say, for the Muslim community here?
The thing is, they cannot find jobs. It's the most important thing. I work in a restaurant. I have one girl from Morocco. I have one girl from Ethiopia. I have one girl from Algeria. But usually the owner of restaurants don't take them to work in restaurants. Why? Because people don't want to see them. You know, here in this district, in this area, it's very positive. It's a very positive area. People are very nice, are very open-minded. So it's different. But in some places in Paris, where the waiter and the waitress can have a lot of money and work, you don't see people from Maghreb, but not too much. I mean, there is not enough.
You are a young man. I don't know if you have children.
Yes, I have a daughter, and she worked at 300 meters in her school. Friday, close of Port de Vincennes. Okay. So I was scared.
So she was scared for her.
Yeah, but now I can say that I'm scared for her, but not for me. You know, we're gonna fight. We're gonna be there, and we're gonna show them that we are together. And that's it. We don't want to sit. We don't want to sit.
Julien, thank you very much. Indeed. So Julien, who works here, talking about the fact that he employs people from the North African colonies, the former colonies of France, Tunisia, Morocco, and Algeria. And just looking down at the crowds now, you see representatives from all those countries, and indeed all over the world, coming here, holding up their signs saying "Je suis Charlie," and people who've made Paris their home as well. We're now probably about a mile where we are here, maybe more than a mile, from Place de la Nation, which is very near Porte de Vincennes, which is where that kosher supermarket siege ended so bloodily on Friday. One of the accomplices, the common law wife of the governor there, on the run. The crowd once again looking up at the police marksman on the roof here, who are acknowledging them. And it's fair to say that everyone I've spoken to today said that yes, they did feel a little apprehensive for coming out today with their children, a lot of them, and their grandparents perhaps. But now, once this march has started, once this rally has started, feel no fear at all, united by the sheer strength of feeling and the numbers here in Paris today, as there have been other rallies around France in the last 24 hours. But dusk is about to fall. It's going to take many hours, I think, for these crowds to pass through this route. And remember, this is just one route of two which the authorities have organized at this period of heightened security, making their way down to Place de la Nation. The scenes here in Paris are remarkable. When think back to the revolutions in Ukraine and Libya, and one remembers seeing such huge numbers there. But here, in a Western capital, in Paris, in a secular country, awash with flags from different countries, the tricolor, the flag of Israel, different nationalities, people who have made France, Paris their home.
That is how the day is unfolding here in the French capital. The light is beginning to fade, but not the spirit, and not the good-natured feelings in this crowd. Crowds here, we saw hours ago, the hundreds of thousands of people who converged on this main gathering place has become a symbol of the horrific events of this week, has now been turned into a place for almost a celebration of what they believe they must hold dear in their defense of the values of the French Republic. As Tim was saying, people from all walks of life, people from all faiths and no faith, gathering here today to take a stand against terrorism, to pay tribute to the 17 people who lost their lives in 3 days of terrorism here in Paris, and also to send a strong signal that what matters most of all is unity. But let's just turn around now, take a look at some of the people who gathered here, holding the white roses. You're a member of the Jewish community.
Yeah, I'm the Jewish man, and it's a Muslim man who gave me this flower with my daughter. And I would like to say that the God said at the beginning of the world, I am who I am. And he created the world for the peace, and everybody and every nation. And we are here just to say that everybody's the same, and to not fight, just for the peace.
And when this Muslim man gave you this lovely white rose, what did he say to you, or she say to you?
He said, I give you this just for the peace, and I tell him that we are with you, and we are very happy you are here for the manifestation, for everybody, and we take a photo with him and with me, with my kippah, to show all over the world that the Muslim and the Jewish can live together, and with the French people and all over the world, the people has no color, no race, no religion, and everybody can live together. But God say, live in peace.
And what was your feeling this week when you saw the Jewish supermarket being attacked, when members of the Jewish community being taken hostage? What were your feelings then?
My feeling is that long time in Paris, in France, we are some terrorist attack and some thing for the Jewish people. But now the government and the people, all the French people, can say, I'm Charlie, I'm Jewish, I'm policeman. And like the French people can say that I am Jewish in French, we're feeling that all the community and all the French people are with the Jewish. And we think that, and we hope that never again in France and all over the world.
Do you believe that?
I don't believe it's possible, but I hope.
And I'll ask your daughter, et vous avez beaucoup de confiance dans votre futur ici? Great confidence in your future?
Niveau confiance, c'est un grand mot parce que c'est un big word. On ne croit pas trop en sécurité. On aimerait la paix dans le monde et surtout en France. Au niveau des religions, au niveau de la liberté. On aimerait pouvoir être libre de pouvoir publier ce qu'on veut. Et après, niveau confiance, on aimerait pouvoir être en confiance, mais ça devient de plus en plus compliqué.
So being confident is much more complicated, even though you agree in the freedom of expression. But do you think you will stay here? Vous allez rester en France?
Je ne sais pas.
You don't know if you're going to stay. Why? Pourquoi?
Vu les conséquences aggravantes sur le pays change et avec ce qui se passe avec la
country's changing what's fast. Oui, continue.
Oui, du coup, je ne sais pas si j'aimerais rester en France dans les années futures.
You're saying that you're not going to stay in France, and I'm looking at your father's adoring gaze, and I think he's hoping that you will stay in France with him. I think it's up to you, it's up to the many people of France to make sure the younger generation feels, whether it's the Jewish community or the Muslim community, to feel they have a place here. Bon courage. Thank you very much, Shalom. And you got your Je suis Charlie here, yes?
We believe in freedom of liberty of expression in France. So everybody is Charlie today.
And what does freedom of expression mean to you? We know what it meant to the cartoonist at Charlie Hebdo, was the right to provoke, to print these cartoons. What does it mean to you?
I will try to explain it in English, but it's very important in France to have this freedom of expression, and then when terrorists kill this freedom, you can see that every French person, every French people are here to fight again.
And what is your main worry about the future?
Sorry?
What is your main concern for the future?
I don't understand.
Votre ennui principal en ce qui concerne votre futur ici en France?
We want to keep this freedom, and we want to keep saying and drawing what we want.
Well, we hope it's the case. We hope it's the case for every country that values its freedom of expression. And I can see behind you the smiling faces of the women from I think you're from the Central African Republic. You had a banner that you were holding up. No, vous êtes de l'Afrique centrale, vous êtes de la République centrafricaine. Et vous avez vu le placard? Oui, c'est où? Pour la liberté dans votre pays aussi. Et ça vous va qu'il y a des leaders africains ici, du Mali, du Niger?
Nous, on est de la Centrafrique et on a eu ce problème entre notre pays, les chrétiens et les musulmans qui se sont...
Oh yes, you also have had terrible between Christians and Muslims in the Central African Republic.
Ouais, donc le monde entier connaît un peu cette histoire de la Centrafrique. Moi, je veux juste la paix chez moi, la paix entre les chrétiens et les musulmans. C'est pour cela qu'on est derrière Charlie, quoi.
Oh, that's such an extraordinary statement being made by these women from the Central African Republic, where in the past year we've seen absolutely savagery and this eruption of violence, tension, unprecedented tension in the Central African Republic. And she says that's why she is also Charlie, Je suis Charlie, because in her own country it has seen the worst of the violence between communities, of society destroyed and ripped apart. And that, of course, is not the kind of scenarios that are being contemplated here across Europe. But every leader who's come here to stand with President Hollande of France is underlining that this is a threat facing so many countries today, including Britain. And my colleague Damien Grammaticus has been speaking to Britain's Prime Minister David Cameron. Let's hear what somebody had to say.
I think it is a day about people. It's a day about solidarity with the French people. But I think that President Hollande wanted, and I absolutely agree, that it was good that leaders of other countries came here to show solidarity with him, with the French people. Because that, in the end, is what it's about. We're saying this is an appalling terrorist attack. It's an attack on the values that we hold dear to in Britain, about freedom of speech, about democracy, about tolerance, and we want to stand with you to make that point.
Is what happened in Paris here the sort of thing that keeps you awake at night worrying?
Yes, it is. We live in a free, open, tolerant democracy. We face a threat from Islamist, extremist, violent terrorists. They have launched attacks in our country before. They've launched attacks on British citizens overseas. And in recent months, everybody knows there have been a number of attempts, for instance, to try and kill police officers. That, through the brilliance of our intelligence and security and policing services, we've stopped. But I, of course, am very concerned about the threats that we face in our country, and we have to be eternally vigilant about them.
What makes you so sure that we're not going to see what happened here happening in London or elsewhere?
Well, we cannot be certain. We have our threat level is set independently by the Joint Terrorism Assessment Centre. They've said that the threat level in Britain is severe, and it's the second highest level. That means they think an attack is highly likely. Obviously, we have to work with the security services, with the police, but also right across government, right across the country, because, of course, tackling this poisonous death cult, this extremist narrative of the violent Islamist extremists, is something for all of us to do. We have to confront it, whether we find it in schools or universities, or in our communities, or even in our prisons. And that's why this government has tried to bring together all the resources necessary to do just that.
You'll be chairing a special security meeting tomorrow morning. What would you be saying at that meeting after this?
Well, one of the things I will be checking up on, as I've done many times, is that we have looked at every potential scenario. We've looked at what happens in other countries, how the threats could change. I mean, I remember going back to when I first became Prime Minister, we held a whole series of meetings to examine how we'd respond to the sort of attack that took place in Mumbai, a sort of roving firearms terrorist attack. Not totally unlike what we saw in Paris. Now, these are incredibly difficult situations to prepare for. We are fortunate that we have very capable counter-terrorism police, we have very capable security and intelligence services, we have brilliant special forces. We need to make sure we have everything in place to cope with whatever situation might arise. But you know, we live in a free and open democracy. You cannot be certain of always preventing attacks like these from taking place.
So what changes after Paris?
I think what changes is running through all the potential scenarios, all the things that happened here, and asking again, because of course we've asked these questions many times in the past, have we got everything we need to respond to these sorts of attacks? That is the obvious question that I'm sure the whole British public wants to know, that the government is asking day after day, and our brilliant security and intelligence services and policing services and all the other bodies we have are thinking it through.
Just a personal question. You were out there with those tons of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. What's the personal recollection you will take from today?
I think what I will take was the immense nature of the crowd, absolutely huge. Silent by moments and then moved at other moments. I think perhaps the sign I'll remember the most is the one that said, "Je suis Charlie, je suis flic, cop, je suis juif, Jew. I'm Charlie, I'm police, I'm Jewish." It was a demonstration of solidarity. People throughout this country, young and old, black and white, saying we stand with the victims. We're not going to put up with this because we're a free, open, tolerant country. And as a Briton, I felt that exactly the same.
David Cameron, the British Prime Minister, who came here to be part of this day of solidarity, expressing his concerns as France in France continuing threat of terrorism, and of course it is a threat also faced by Britain in many countries worldwide. That's why we're here to send a message of solidarity. And let's take a look at the images from earlier today as they began their march toward Place de la Nation, led of course by François Hollande, the President of France, and then presidents from many regions across the world. You can see the crowd there. They're moving together, the President of Mali, the President of Niger, leaders from the Middle East, like we see Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel. There's also Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian leader, Petro Poroshenko of the Ukraine. We got the Dutch Prime Minister, Rutte, as well. Jean-Claude Juncker, from the head of the European Commission, and really from every part of the world, leaders who could make it here, could clear their diaries to come here to be part of this effort to stand with France, to stand against the kind of violence we saw erupting here in France this week. And it's for that reason, it's not just officials, of course, who want to send a message, although we come down to the leaders to come up with the policies to confront the threat of extremist violence. But it's also, of course, a day for the people to have their say. More than 1 million expected at the end of the day to have come out today to join this march. And people have been leaving here, but there's still some people holding on in the bitter cold, including from where you're French.
Yes, I'm French. I was born in Paris.
And you got is your banner there? Je suis français.
I'm French. I'm Muslim and against terrorism.
And where is your family's ancestry?
Sorry?
Where is your family from?
My family is from Algeria. My parents were born in Tlemcen, in Algeria.
And for you, what's important to you about being French? What's part of your French identity?
What's part of my identity is French. My religion is Islam, but I'm French. I live here. I eat the French bread, and I love my country. And I'm here now, and I work against terrorism because this act, what happened this week is we all are victims of this. there are Jews, there is Christian, there is some people who do not believe in God, but they are human. We all are human. We all are brothers. The people who died this week, I'm really concerned by them, because maybe it will be me. Just tomorrow it will be me, my brother, this woman here, you. We don't know. Terrorists are crazy. Terrorists can how do you say that? Can attack anywhere, everywhere.
No, this is very much a day to emphasize national unity, but many people fear that France is not united. That, for example, the far-right anti-immigration party, some reports say it's gaining in strength through what happened this week.
Yeah, what happened this week? Some people say that how do you say? It's going to divide French, divide French, and this we are not divided. We all are here, black and white people, Muslims and not Muslims, Jews and not Jews. We all are here because we are French. This is the only question. We are French. We don't want anyone to attack France. We don't want anyone to attack another human.
But do the authorities here have to do more to make the Muslim community feel that they're an important part of French society? What has to change?
I think how do we say that? The big problem of this division in France is the government, because people don't have any problem. Let's see. There is my friend. He's black. This woman. He's white. I don't know them. She's white. Sorry. I don't. He's Catholic, and I don't know him, and I don't care, because we're not there to speak about religion. We are there to speak about our liberty and our security. This is all. And the fact that the French government want to install a debate about identity, we don't have a problem of identity. We don't have a problem with security, because you want France to be divided. And we don't want that. We are united here, and these pictures show that very perfectly.
Okay. Where are you from? Vous êtes d'où?
Mali.
Vous êtes du Mali? Oh, votre président est ici aujourd'hui.
Oui, il est là, il est là, ouais.
Okay. Et c'est bien qu'il est là?
Oui, c'est très bien, on est très content.
So this is someone from Mali, whose president, Boubacar Keïta, is here today. You in Mali, you had the threat of Islamism. They took over, the extreme Islamist groups took over the north in Timbuktu. Il y avait eu les problèmes au Mali, à Timbuktu, dans le nord du Mali. Il y avait le problème du islamisme. Et il reste toujours un problème. There's still a problem.
Ouais, maintenant c'est mieux, grâce à François Hollande, on est très content.
Yes, France sent troops to Mali to help push back the Islamist groups. C'était très bien que la France a aidé votre pays.
Oui, très bien, on est très content, on est très bien content. On est là aujourd'hui pour montrer qu'on n'est pas très bien content de ce qui s'est passé. Donc on est tous charlés, je suis musulman, je suis charlé, donc vive la vérité.
So here's someone from Mali who says that he's Muslim, he's from an African country, but he is Charlie as well, and he wanted to be here to be able to say that they were standing together. We're going to continue to get the views of the crowd, but let's hear again from the leader. The Italian Prime Minister Renzi has also been speaking today.
It is a very important event, because for the first time, I believe, we give the message Europe all together, the leader, the politician, but also the people, normal people, give the message Europe will be the place for future. It's not only the place who give the freedom for 70 years to our generation. It's the place for the future. And if there is an attack to Paris, if terrorism try to destroy our values, the answer is a very strong answer altogether. For this reason, I'm proud to be here. I represent my people, my generation, my country, but I think I am a part of a big people, who is the European people. This is the reason for which I am happy to be here in a terrible moment, in a moment of solidarity, of difficulty, but also in a moment of hope.
Do you think the presence of so many people in Paris and around France, he says that?
I think it's a beautiful the presence of a lot of normal people, not only leaders, not only politicians, because I'm absolutely convinced that the people make history. In this case, the people of Paris, the people of France, but I think the people of Europe give a message for the freedom of expression, absolutely important. The attack against erudition of journalists, it's a message, a terrible message, but the reaction is a reaction for which we are absolutely convinced the future belongs to our values, and we are stronger than horror and than terrorism.
And that's the Italian Prime Minister Renzi. We have with us here a member of the Italian royal family, Emanuele Filiberto de Savoia. And why is an Italian prince here today in Paris?
To pay tribute for what happened, to pay tribute to people that are no longer here, that had an ideal of freedom of speech, of freedom of thinking. And I think it's very important to say that today that we are on Charlie, like a lot of those, they say about 1.5 million people were here. And also to try to say to the government that we should not wait that something terrible like this happens. That you don't, you're not born being an integralist. You're not born wanting to blow up everything, but you've been trained. So I think what is important today is to find values, the right values. Education is very important for kids, and try to give a point of view in the future for all those generations. This morning I was with my 2 daughters and I tried to explain to them what was I doing here and why I wanted to come and do this wonderful march. And I think it's very, very important, because feeling all these people that screamed all the same thing, we're all Charlie, but we're all in the same world today. We have different religions, we can have different colors, but it's another a fight that has been how do you say, combattuto, combattu.
Yes. Yes, fought against, yes.
Fought against for a long, long time, and still today, it is still in us, and it's very, very important to try to say we are all in the same planet, we are all individuals, and we all want to live along together.
Now, of course, Prime Minister Renzi decided from Italy to be part of the day as well. Do you think what happened this week in France, in Paris, could also happen in Rome?
But I think we must see it in a more global way. That what is happening in Paris is happening all over the world. That's why all the more than 50 heads of state came. It was wonderful to see Israel and Palestine together today, and I think all these are incredible messages that, you know, Muslims are not the people that did these terrible things. We must not point to any religion, but we must try to live all together.
It's one thing, of course, for the people, and we're hearing such expressions of support and solidarity among the people from many walks of life who've gathered here today, but it is also a political question, it is a security question, and it will be up to the leaders to lead, to make the changes, because changes must be made in what is, of course, is a society which is where the relations between communities are strained, and where people feel sometimes it's some second-class citizens.
Yes, security is one thing. So I think today I also heard your news, and where the MI5 said that where they speak very rarely, but they said that England is one of the targets, like I think all major capitals in Europe. But I think we must fight all this from the beginning, from the racines of
Yeah,
the
from the roots.
from the roots, and we must try to explain to all kids in the world that you can have it from Mali to France, from all the what life is, what the real values are, and real values are not to blow up a newspaper and to kill people. No, real values are living all together and trying to find a good equilibrium between all religions and all people. And this, I think, is the important thing. And this is also, it's a big part of why I'm here today. And I'm very happy to take part in this march.
You fear an attack like we saw this week would happen again?
I want to say no. I really hope not. But you know, a lot of other media asked me, were you scared coming here? No, I was not scared because I really felt like it. So, you know, let's all be careful. Let's all be careful. I see that now also in the school, they teach kids to be careful with their bags in the streets. You know, some security questions because we never know. But I really hope not. I really hope this will be the last. I want to think in a positive way.
Well, today is a day for positive feelings. Thank you very much, Emmanuel Filippo de Savoy, from the Italian royal family, for coming to share your views with us here as darkness descends here in Paris and La Place de la République, and the temperatures are dropping as well. This extraordinary show of strength and solidarity here today in the French capital. But it's not just in France where people are gathering today. We can also show you the scenes that are coming from Trafalgar Square, right in the heart of London. Let's just take a look at the images there.
Hundreds of people have gathered here. They've been here for hours in Trafalgar Square, waiting really for the lights to be switched on here. You can probably see them just behind us on the front of the National Gallery. The colours, of course, of the French flag, blue, white and red, and the two fountains here have also been lit up. There are also other London monuments which are being lit up with those colours tonight. Tower Bridge, from 4 o'clock it was lit up. It's going to go out at 5:30, then it will go dark. The London Eye will go dark, and the French flag will be projected onto County Hall as well. So these monuments are to symbolise unity with France. And we can speak now to the Mayor of London, Boris Johnson, who is with us this afternoon.
Yes, well, I'm also very pleased and proud that we've been able to show this gesture of solidarity and unity with the people of France. I think everybody feels that they're